Yo, what is up, YouTube? So in today's video, I'm going to talk about why you should consider learning how to drive a stick shift. I actually learned on my friend's 93 Honda Prelude. This was years ago, back in high school. And shout out to Chris if you're watching this video. Thank you for letting me learn how to drive on your car. And also major apologies for stalling on your car. I probably stalled at least 15 to 20 times while I was learning. And that's what allowed me to get pretty fluent, but at the same time, I know put a lot of wear and tear on your transmission. So my apologies for that. And shout out to Chris for letting me practice on your car. But anyways, so I learned how to drive on a 93 Honda Prelude, and it was just a fun experience. And it really just gave me an appreciation for stick shift vehicles. And since then, I've actually never owned personally an automatic vehicle. All of my cars have been manual transmissions for a reason. And what I want to talk about today is some of the reasons why it actually makes sense for you to learn how to drive a manual or a stick shift, because I think there are some clear benefits. Now, I will say learning how to drive a stick shift isn't always easy. It's going to take a little bit of a learning curve. And when you first start out, you're probably going to stall a lot like I did. But once you get to a point where you are more comfortable and you are, switching gears at the right cadence, your confidence is going to improve and it's going to be like riding a bike. So here are the 5 reasons why you should learn how to drive a manual car. Number 1, it might save your life. Now, you might think I'm crazy, but think about this. Let's say you're overseas and you're with a driver who is driving a manual car and something happens where he's incapacitated or he's not able to drive. And let's just assume that there aren't anyone nearby or a AAA tow truck to get you to where you need to go. So what do you do in that situation? Well, learning how to drive a stick shift will get you prepared so that if you're in that scenario, you can safely, return home or get to your destination without any troubles. Now, this is probably a rare situation, but it still can happen. And a lot of the cars that exist today out on the road, especially countries abroad outside of the US, a lot of those cars are still manual. And so this is a skill set that I think will definitely pay off dividends and get you out of a tough situation. Now, the second reason is learning how to drive a stick shift is a great transferable skill that will help you if you, let's say, want to get a motorcycle, or let's say if you want to drive an ATV, it's going to help out. If you also want to consider upgrading to a sports car that has a manual stick shift one day, then it's also going to be beneficial because then you don't have to learn while you're at the dealership or as you're leaving the dealership. You can already have those skills, so you don't have to learn them with a brand new car. And of course, stalling on a manual car can also put a lot of wear and tear on your engine and on your transmission. I actually had a friend growing up who bought a brand new $30,000, $40,000 sports car, and he learned from the dealership, leaving the dealership, and he stalled multiple times, and he was putting a lot of wear and tear on his car from the very beginning, and it just wasn't a great experience. The third reason that I want to talk about is you'll save a lot of money. Manual cars are typically cheaper because there's a lot less moving parts in a manual transmission. They're typically lighter, cheaper to repair, and I think a lot of them are also better on gas. So if you want to drive a stick shift, you're probably going to get better performance and also have lower maintenance costs. Now, I will say that a lot of the newer cars, if you go to the dealership today, they probably won't have manual cars, and a lot of the newer tech and the hybrids and electric cars are mostly all going to be automatic anyways. So it's probably going to be less relevant if you're thinking about the future and getting a brand new vehicle. But if you still want to get a used car, then I think having that skill set, it's going to definitely pay off. Now, the fourth reason why I think it's worth learning how to drive a manual car is that it's also going to help you become a better driver. When you're driving a stick shift, you have more things to worry about. You've got a clutch, you've got the shifter, you're having to think about your engine RPM and matching that and making sure that you're shifting at the right time. And so you're a lot more engaged when you're driving. And that in of itself is going to ensure that you're paying attention when you're driving. It's much harder to get distracted when you're having to shift and constantly think about all of the different actions that goes into speeding up and slowing down when you're in a manual vehicle. The fifth and last reason that I want to share is, in my opinion, it's just a lot more fun to drive. Manual cars typically give you better control. They're lighter, they're more sportier. A lot of the cars that were built in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s are manual. Think about the 350Z, Subaru BRZ, the Honda S2000, the Mazda Miata, all the way up to like the luxury models, like the Porsches. A lot of these cars, they came with a traditional 5-speed or 6-speed manual. Even though now more of them are DSG or some sort of a direct shift gearbox. A lot of these sportier cars were all sort of designed to get the driver more engaged, and that was what customers were looking for. Obviously now with energy efficiency and companies trying to be much more compliant with emission regulations. They're shifting their strategy and thinking about efficiency in mind and becoming less reliant on fossil fuels. But there's still a lot of manual cars out there, and there's still a lot more fun to drive cars that are going to require you to learn that skill. If you guys do want to learn, I think the best way is to find a friend or someone you know personally that can teach you either on their car or a car that you own. I think most rental car companies and peer-to-peer companies like Turo, a lot of them probably aren't going to be offering manual transmissions because they probably know that a lot of people are going to try to abuse it. But if you can, learn with a friend, find someone on Craigslist who might be teaching. I remember when I actually posted up an ad offering to teach people how to drive a stick shift, and I helped a couple people while we were driving in an empty parking lot in a Costco. And it usually takes you, maybe an hour, maybe a little bit longer, depending on how fast your learning curve is. But it's something that you could probably learn within a day, and it just doesn't take a lot of time, and it gives you a lot of satisfaction once you actually master that skill set. So those are the 5 reasons that I have for you guys. Let me know what you think. Do you think it's still worth learning how to drive a stick shift, or do you think it's an outdated skill that's just no longer relevant? I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you agree or disagree, drop a comment, subscribe if you're enjoying my content, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.